The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, in the northern part of what I consider to be the greatest state going. Now, I grew up in New York, so there are New Yorkers who will give me an argument. There are people who grew up in New Jersey who will give me an argument. You can't find many, but I found one. He's my buddy, Gene, the baseball machine, Hutmaker. How you doing, Gene?
I'm doing okay.
All right. You've been on the DL for the last couple of weeks. Some knee surgery, knee replacement surgery, and we talked off air. You're coming along great. It's your second try at it. The first one was on your left knee, if I remember correctly.
The right knee, now I have the left one done.
Oh, okay. So you match.
Yeah, they matched 5 years ago, and now they match again.
Okay. So are you... the big changes really reflect our medical treatment, the way we get it nowadays. You said something to me off air that really amazed me.
Hold on. Joe, no. Okay, go ahead. That was my nurse.
I was just saying that your first knee surgery, right knee, they gave you X number of time in the hospital and X number of time in rehab. That ended up to how many days in care?
I was probably 3 weeks between 3 days hospital and 2 weeks in rehab. And
okay.
So when I came home,
this time, 5 years later,
Tuesday and out on Thursday.
Wow. Now, was it because of any less of an invasion on your body?
No, probably because it was the insurance that they want to pay for.
That's my point.
That's probably the main thing.
It isn't baseball, but it's life, and that's what we all have to put up with, is reduced benefits, so that the very, very rich can continue to get very, very rich and stay rich. We, the middle class, are suffering from it, and it's become epidemic. In every field, we're getting screwed. So, there you go. Let's get on to happier talk. Gene, you're a baseball collectible guy. You collect memorabilia, you collect old yearbooks, you collect old World Series programs. And you made some postings this week on Facebook that really blew me away. You've got some vintage World Series, not the reproductions. They're out there. If you can get, if money is an object, and a lot of people collect these, there are companies that reproduce yearbooks, programs, and what have you. No, you've got the original stuff. How did you first start collecting, and what made you interested in the first place?
Well, my sons were this is like late 70s. My sons weren't even 10 yet, and they started collecting the cards, and they whetted my appetite because I used to collect them. Of course, I put them in my bike spokes and flipping them and all of that. So I decided to go for World Series programs because they got every player in there, and like I have the 1936 one is my earliest, and that has Gehrig and DiMaggio and Hubble and Ott in it and all of that. And the ones I buy are in pretty good condition. And back then, I would say like 1936, 37 ones, I could probably get them for $20, $25. Now they'd probably go for $200 to $400, depending on the condition. And living in the New York area, I would go to some of the memorabilia stores. They didn't have tons of them like they had in the 1990s. I remember going to one store in next to the town I grew up in with the sports. So I went in there, and they were $25 a piece. I bought 5 of them, 4 of them from the 1950s, and I thought, okay, well, how about dealing with the guy? I thought I got 5 for $100.
Right. Do you remember when we were kids coming into New York City, into Manhattan, me from Queens, you from New Jersey, and the abundance of magazine stores that use magazine stores, sometimes in conjunction with bookstores, with used bookstores, but you'd go in there and they'd have all the old sport magazines and all World Series programs from the 50s, $2-3 at that time, almost face value from what...
In the New York area, I mean, from 1949 to 1957, every World Series game was won by a New York team. So it was easier to get in this area because this is where them programs would be, and I guess nobody was really collecting them that much, probably like 1979. Yeah. If you were in Indiana, it's kind of hard to find old Yankee yearbooks. And this was back before 1980. And then from there, I went on to getting...
But it wasn't even in vogue, when memorabilia wasn't even in vogue full force yet. And just imagine if when we went to games as kids, we'd buy, instead of buying a yearbook and maybe a revised yearbook during the season, we bought 10 yearbooks, 10 revised, thinking someday these books are going to be worth a lot of money, and I'll send my kid to college with these books. Nobody had the foresight to be able to predict how much it would come to financially for this stuff. And
it is unbelievable how I have a couple of sets from the 1930s, and when I'm putting these sets together, who are these kids to save these cards? Because the ones I have are I have a couple Jimmy Fox cards from the 30s that are in perfect condition. Who were these kids to save them? Because basically everyone lived in the city then, outside of farmers. So by then people would be moving into the suburbs, and they move, and they didn't have baseball card acrylics that you could put them in to protect them. And the cards I have from the 30s are almost I have a Lou Gehrig 1933 DeLong card that's in really tremendous shape.
Yeah, people would save their collectibles in those days. A lot of it was hoarding too. It was the Depression. People saved everything. I don't know. I don't know what got it started, other than Cy Berger with Topps and those barges that went out after the 52, the 51 or the 52 set.
A woman lived next door to me whose father worked. She was telling me about it. That her father worked for Topps, and she was telling me how that they were there for 10 years. What are they supposed to do with them? They're there for 10 years, taking up valuable space in the warehouse. Hey, let's get rid of these. So who want So.
Yeah, and they're constantly turning over sets. So you have new sets coming in each year. And at that time, Topps was in a small warehouse in Brooklyn. They really didn't have much room. It wasn't until much later that they bought, I can't think of the name of the city in Pennsylvania where their main warehouse is now and where they do most of the production.
Bowman was, they stopped in 56, so you figured Topps they had the monopoly from 56 up with the cards. In fact, Fleer tried it in 63, and they were told they even put a cookie in it instead of a gum, and the courts ruled that they couldn't do it.
Well, I'll tell you what. The irony of it all is that Topps ends up buying Bowman, and they have a Bowman set that they put out each year.
Yeah, well, they do that to make more money. As a kid growing up, 53 was my first year, and the Bowman 53 set was just a picture of a guy, nothing on the front except a beautiful picture. So I collected them, and Stan Musial was on it, and I loved the Cardinal uniform. That's one of the reasons why I became a Cardinal fan. And then they also had Topps. And as I recall, the Bowman card wrapper had Joe DiMaggio written on it. Now, I'm an 8-year-old kid. I don't know. So when I used to go to the candy store, and they would have Topps and 3 packs of cards, Joe DiMaggio ones. I used to call them the Joe DiMaggio. I didn't even know it was Bowman. I just used to call them the Joe DiMaggio cards.
Wow.
I was more of a Bowman collector than Topps.
I wonder if you Googled that, you'd be able to find out what that set was about.
Yeah, well that set in the problem with 53 is Topps was such a success in 52 with the bigger card and everything. So that might have swayed people to go to Topps. But the Bowman 53 set with the color, supposedly they ran out of money to keep on doing color, so they made another set at the end. Their last, they did it in series then, was in black and white. So Bowman has color set to 160, and then they have another set, black and white, which is after 160 because it's black and white.
That would be an interesting set to buy just for that very reason.
They were getting out of money. Whatever it cost to color them, they figure, what the kid's going to do with it? They make them, they're going to throw them out, so what's the difference if we make them black and white or not? And I know that's what I did. And they went in the back pocket, rubber band, back pocket, ride your bike, go over your friends, and then you flip them. That's why I don't understand. I go to somebody's
first
car
you trade them, and then you flip them.
I go to these card shows. When the Nationals were in Atlantic City, I went down there. I mean, they got perfect cards from the tobacco cards of the 1920s, which is crazy. I mean, how did these things get through all the years? Now, my earliest set is, it's not really, it's like I made in 1913, they made a playing card of 52. That was called the National Game, and then there was Tom Barker. The same photo was on each, so whichever one you got, it was the same photo. So I decided to collect, and it was an actual photo. This was 1913. So I decided I got all the Hall of Famers except Zach Wheat. Like I have Joe Jackson, Honus Wagner, Johnson, Grover Cleveland. So that's that, and because it's like a playing card, it's in pretty good condition. You know what I mean? It's not like cardboard. So that's why I decided if I'm going to go get a Ty Cobb card, I want one that's going to be in decent condition. And it's actual photos of them. It's really like, really cool set I made.
Nice.
I mean, my Honus Wagner is probably like $300, where the 1912 one is like $500,000.
Whoa. Think about that for a second.
And my wife, she cannot understand my obsession with cardboard like I can understand her obsession with footwear. She has more footwear than a centipede.
That's very good. So she's been helping you in rehab, and you have the guts to say that.
Well, sometimes one flew over the cuckoo nest. Sometimes she's like the nurse in there.
Nurse Ratchet or Cratchit. Which one was it?
That was one great movie.
That was a terrific movie. That's where Danny DeVito met Michael Douglas. They were both in that movie, and they went on together. So,
well, while you mentioned Michael Douglas, let me tell you the Michael Douglas story. My wife worked as a temp for IBM, and she gets a phone call. And she goes, "This is Kirk Douglas. So-and-so." And she goes, "Kirk Douglas?" She goes, "Oh, my God, I love your son. Oh, but my mother loves you." And then she connected him. Just what a guy wants to hear.
My mother loves your son. Yes.
I guess it was a big deal because Ron Guidry called her up during the 1978 season. So she comes home from work and she goes, "You know who? You ever hear of Ron Guidry?" I go, "Ron Guidry?" Like, yeah. I mean, I go, "It was 25 and 3." He goes, "Oh, he called me up today." I go, "Really? He called you up?" I go, "Yeah. He wanted to talk to my boss about if he wanted to get some playoff tickets." I go, why didn't you engage him? Because my sons were only 7 and 5 then, but I would have loved to take him to a playoff game.
Yeah, but she didn't.
No, she didn't know who he was.
All right. A brush with fame. Do you remember your first baseball card that you ever had as a kid?
Well, actually, my mother's godson lived with us, and he was 10 years older than me. He was in his high school years. And he used to get the little ones, the 1950 ones, the real small ones. I remember them, but I didn't pay any attention. But the real first ones was collecting them 53. But naturally, Stan Musial was my favorite because he was Stan Musial. But Del Rice was in that set. And there was a great picture of him in a catching pose. And I used to like the cards based on the pose, not necessarily their stats. And the Del Rice card, and my sister was 2 years older than me. She was 10. And she was a baseball fan, too. And I took a chance, and I flipped it, and I lost it. I lost my Del Rice card to her. Oh, man, it was,
Well, you know what's interesting? I collected, when the Giants moved from New York in 57, very next year, I collected the 58 Brave, because I rooted for them in the World Series so hard.
58?
57. I was a National League guy. I hated the American League at that time. I really hated the Yankees like you do. I've mellowed on that. I worshiped them back then. I didn't know it in my head, but I did worship them. And now it gets to the point I worship all three of those teams, looking back in my memory. But I rooted for the Braves to beat the Yankees in 57. They did, and I collected the 58 tops. I never have a chance to collect an entire set. I went to summer camp, so sets would come out during the summer at different times. Different series they called them. Series would come out, different candy stores, but I did collect every Milwaukee Brave card in 1958, and Del Crandall's backup was Del Rice.
Del Crandall, me and him shared the same birthday. That was one of my claims to fame. Is Del Crandall was born on my birthday. I was born on his birthday.
I got to meet Del Crandall when I was doing my Tops gig, and he was in the California League, working for the Dodgers as a roving catching instructor with the Dodgers. And I went up to him, and it was like that set that I collected, that's of Braves card, coming to life. He is 40 years later. This is in the 80s, maybe 30 years later. He looked exactly the same. The guy was just stoic, big old guy, and he was known to be the best catching instructor in baseball. I'm sure he's retired by now.
So did you have the Mantle Aaron card when they had that? Was a real good card in that set.
Yes.
That was a great
Mantle
card.
Aaron.
How would you like it when you opened up the pack and you got the president of the American League, Will Harridge?
Right. Or how about this? You open up a pack and you get, now it's worth a lot of money in pristine condition, but they called it a checklist.
I know, yeah,
Right?
I know.
You'd open it up and you'd be so disappointed because you wouldn't know if you just took that checklist and put it in a drawer someplace.
Did you know they were doing series back in them? I didn't know they were doing it. Like when I was collecting back in '58, that was my last year of really collecting. That I don't remember them being series or not. And then all of a sudden you go to the store and you start getting newer cards.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know there was like
that affects the worth of the card now, and I'm not going to try to make heads nor tails. At the end of the year, there was a shortage of this, that, or the other thing. The higher numbers are tougher to get. Whatever it was, as any other commodity, it's affected by when the cards, when it was released, when it was available. But they did series. And
I thought that the set was kind of drab, though, if compared to the 57 set, because the 57 was actual field for the background. I didn't like the solid color backgrounds.
No, well, but they were easier to navigate. You see them. The print was real small. It didn't stand out, so you get a guy. It was easier to go through the pack when you got it. Got it, need it, got it.
And the All-Star subset was great.
That was a wonderful set. And it was one of those sets that had both Ted Williams and Stan Musial in it.
Right. Musial, they decided to give up. For whatever reason, he refused to be in Topps or Bowman. He would be in Red Heart or some other company card, but he refused Topps or Bowman for whatever reason. I'm sure it wasn't for money because he didn't need money. But somehow Bush was going to donate money if he decided to make a Topps All-Star card. So he doesn't have a Topps regular card, but he does have a Topps All-Star card. Which makes me very happy.
That All-Star series says on it Sport Magazine All-Star. So,
they use Sports Illustrated.
Either red with stars for the American League or blue for the National League.
Yeah. One was blue, one was red. Mickey Mantle, I think he was red.
And I remember correctly that it was blue in the National League. And then you get an Aaron card, and he was on the All-Star team, on that All-Star team, and you get a Matthews card. And
that was the first year that you got a San Francisco or an LA card.
I know, and they look crappy. LA cards look better than the San Francisco cards. San Francisco cards, I was a New York Giant fan. First of all, initially they were going to make the SF like the college in San Francisco. And they reversed it. They never did use that on a cap, but they had that logo on some of the early cards. And I was so bitter at even the word San Francisco Giants at that time. Believe me, as an avid New York fan, and I was 11 like you were at that time. It hurt, I got to tell you. And
didn't Les Kiter recreate the games on radio?
Al Blumkin and I and others have talked about that. Yes, indeed, it was Les Kiter, and he'd be in a studio and he'd have, just like Reagan did years before with the Chicago Cubs.
Right.
Reagan would recreate games based on ticker tape results. So the ticker tape goes down. He's got to ad-lib. Well, foul ball. Well, get a bit of a rain delay, this, that, and the other thing. And he'd managed to make a game, an interesting game, out of the bare rudiments of what was happening 3,000 miles away.
I know in the summertime I would stay up late to listen to him.
Yeah.
But especially if the Cardinals were playing.
And
I remember the game that Robin Roberts, it was Willie McCovey's first game in baseball. It was a year later in '59. He went 4 for 4, McCovey, off Roberts. I remember listening to that game.
With a triple or two, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I pounded extra base hits. I don't know.
Now, big old stretch was like Dave Kingman going from first to third when they got a head of steam up with those long strides.
Right.
They were something to watch. And then McCovey quickly hurt his knee, and they had another bad need. Outfield the first baseman, Orlando Cepeda, which brings me to one of your happiest days as a Cardinal, and one of my unhappiest days as a Giant apologist, because that's what I've been all these years when they're in San Francisco. I'm a Met fan and a Giant apologist. There's something about them. The uniforms bring me back. The history. the fact that in San Francisco they really pay homage to the old New York Giants, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, well, the Dodgers don't do that so much with Brooklyn.
I know, and the Mets don't do that with themselves. They pay. Wilponsky will pay more homage to Jackie Robinson, who needs to have homage paid to him in every ballpark, in every way. But you know what? You built the City Stadium to look just Citi Field, whatever it is, to be just like Ebbets Field. Enough with the Dodgers. How about paying attention to not only the Giants, pay homage to them in a small way if you can, but their own Mets. How about a statue of Tom Seaver? Maybe they have one, but they don't have one of Gil Hodges, and they do have one of Jackie Robinson. So baseball is so skewed in so many different ways. I just identify with it. I'm prepared for more, even horrible changes. I think within 5 years they won't have a DH.
I think they will. But personally, I don't like to see.
No. They won't have. I'm sorry. They won't have. They will have a DH in the National League.
Right. Well, the National League is probably the only league in the world that doesn't have a DH.
Right.
There might be some,
that doesn't necessarily make it wrong. that you're preserving it. They're preserving it because it's baseball as we knew it.
Yeah. Well, the problem now is once you hit, in high school, your pitchers are usually your better hitters because they're the best athlete and everything. But once they go to college, you go into the minors. If they're going to be a pitcher, they don't bat anymore.
Bob Buell didn't bat, but Bob bat well. But Bob Lemon, who was
he came up as the third baseman
with the Indians, was the starting center fielder for the Indians in 1948. So, when guys don't play baseball. Dick Stewart, the worst fielding first baseman going,
Dr. Strangelove,
had to pick up a glove and go out there and balance out his skills. He's a tremendous power hitter, but
there was Zeke Bonura in the 30s. Supposedly, of course I never saw him, Zeke Bonura, he used to lead the league in fielding all the time at first base because he never moved, so you couldn't make an error.
Right.
Unless it was right at him. He was
really
was a real good hitter.
Fielding statistics have been based on that for a long time. First of all, the guy with the range is the guy that's going to make the more errors,
right. Mm-hmm.
Of course. Also, the guy with the range is going to help your team the most. So fielding statistics just don't reflect how a player helps your team defensively.
Well, I get it with a lot of people on Facebook with I'm a realist, so Derek Jeter was one of the top 5 shortstops of all time, whereas Yankee haters, they get unrealistic. But I did not vote him 5 Gold Gloves, but the so-called experts voted him 5 Gold Gloves. And then they start presenting all these sabermatics things, which they judge the range and everything. But it's really hard to do. That's all judgment, whereas the people who vote and the ones who do vote are managers and coaches who've been involved in the game for 30, 40 years, and they're the ones that do the voting, and they voted him 5 Gold Gloves. Not 1 or 2, but 5. And this was after the Palmeiro fiasco when he played like 30 games at first base and won it. After that, they kind of straightened it out. Now, I don't think Jeter was all that great. He had noted for that great jump pass from like a football jump pass. He was noted for that.
Well, if it weren't for the intangibles and the fact that he was the Yankee captain,
right.
And if he were just playing a sim game, a computer sim game, when the Yankees end up getting Rodriguez, he was by far the better shortstop between, and it should have been him moving over if you're going to play the game on paper.
It's like right now with Machado.
Pardon me? About Machado?
It's like Machado right now. Like the teams that need him, like if he goes to the Dodgers, they got Seager, who's out this year. Of course, they just got him for this year. If he goes to Boston, they got Bogarts here, who's a real good shortstop. And Machado might be the best shortstop in the majors. But he played third. He's been playing third all the time.
Well, like I say, on paper, Rodriguez was probably the better shortstop with the better range. But
one thing about Jeter,
he had these intangibles going. Not only as the leader of the Yankees, but he would do the small things to win baseball games.
At the Yankees, actually, I hated him.
Right. Pedroia is just the same kind. Give you a Boston guy who I'm sure you don't hate Boston.
No, you know. Well, Mookie Betts had to go to. Mookie Betts, when he came up, he came up as a second baseman. He had to go to outfield because Pedroia was.
Right. Imagine how they think of Mookie Betts as a middle infielder.
With them stats,
raises your value as a ball player, both in fantasy leagues and getting hitters in the middle infield has always been difficult. Now he's getting to the point where good defense is supposedly replaced by the analytical shifting that they do, analytically motivated.
Well, the Red Sox carry it in their hat for each batter.
I heard that today on the MLB.
It was really funny because, like, Mookie took off his hat and was, pointing to the dugout, whatever.
Right, like what to do.
I never did a shift. I mean, I did youth baseball from 8 years old league all the way through high school, and I moved I never did a shift per se. One time I did. I had a slow pitcher. I had my shortstop playing behind the third baseman, but I never did a complete shift. And personally, I don't think that they should make a rule where you got to have two guys on one side and two guys on the other side. I just think the batter should learn how to take advantage of it and do the Rod Carew and hit it where they ain't.
Absolutely. Do the wheelie Keeler. Do you have a wheelie Keeler card anywhere?
No, I don't have that.
He was the guy that said at remember my grandfather telling me all these expressions. Hit it where they ain't, wheelie Keeler. Take two and hit to right. That means take a couple of pitches, see what the guy has, then get the runner over.
I imagine Boggs hitting in the shift.
All that.
Yeah.
Pardon me?
I don't think they would shift with like Boggs up, or Carew, or Gwynn.
No, of course not. But there were selfish guys. Nah, you can't call them selfish. Just call them bullheaded guys like Williams. He never gave into the shift. Rarely gave into the shift. And but the shifts weren't as extreme as they are today. Where
you're the one hopper in the right field for a left-handed batter, and you get thrown out at first.
Right. Now, how do you judge analytically a better fielder when you got your third baseman playing in right field? How do you factor that in?
Well, one thing for the batters, it is the pitches are coming in, from 5 to 10 miles per hour faster too. Where Mickey Mantle said when he came up in 51, 52, the pitches were 5.10 throwing 85, and 68, 67 when he was getting ready to retire, pitches were 6.2 throwing into the 90s. So it's kind of harder to control the pitch when the ball's coming in that fast.
Good point.
Which is why I think people walk more now, because back in the older days, they would make contact and ground out or something, whereas now they don't, so they eventually wind up walking. That's why I think the guys with 260 averages have better on-base averages than guys in the past, because they're not making contact and they're either striking out or walking.
Here's a frightening statistic for you, Gene. It's almost halfway, maybe even halfway. 82 games, yes, halfway.
Yeah, just about halfway.
All right. There are 41 players playing eligible where their stats are eligible for the batting title, let's put it that way. Not just some rookie or whatever, few games off the bench. 41 regulars hitting under 200. Now,
my Cardinal guys.
The Mendoza line, you wouldn't dare hit under 200. It was just not heard of. You wouldn't be around.
That's the problem with the Cardinals too, with Fowler and Wong.
Yeah. Wong's a great second baseman.
Yeah, but he's hitting more like 190 or something.
But you gotta like him for second base.
Right.
And
but back in the 50s when we were collecting, 250 was, if an infielder was hitting 250, like Roy McMillan, he was like, he was worth it if he was hitting 250.
Right. Oh, yeah, if he's hitting 250, he wouldn't be worth it hitting 210, then he'd be Don Budden. Those, and, they were making excuses for him at 250. He was one of the most solid shortstops going. Very good shortstop. And he was directly responsible for tutoring Buddy Harrelson with the Mets. At shortstop, he comes up and McMillan is still there, and they share time. And he was great with Harrelson.
Well, even Phil Rizzuto hit 196. My first glove was the Phil Rizzuto glove.
Mine was a Billy Martin glove. That's interesting.
Well, I got a Phil Rizzuto glove, and he hit like 198 and 54. Phil Rizzuto, Hall of Fame.
Right.
He hit like 198 and 54 when it's. And anyway, back in the day, I don't know how it was where you were, but everybody wanted to know whose model glove you had. So you always wanted to have somebody who was a decent batter, and I had Phil Rizzuto, who didn't bat 200. So at that point, Stan Musial switched over to first base. So I told my dad I wanted to play with my idol, and then I got probably a Ferris Fane model glove.
Ferris Fane, I think I had no, it was a Walt Dropo bat.
Oh.
I had a big old dark brown Walt Dropo bat that I could hardly.
He was my first. He was probably my second autograph I ever got after a White Sox.
Walt Dropo?
Yeah, White Sox. In fact, we lost my sweater going for it. Me and my mother was enthralled by his looks. Dropo was like a John Wayne type looking guy.
Right.
So somehow, when we got done, I didn't have my sweater with me. But I remember getting Dropo, and Marty Marion was the manager. And
slats.
So I got his. He goes, I don't want to sign for you. I go, and I think I had a Stan Musial pin on. I'm a Cardinal fan. Look. Oh, I guess you already signed it. But my first autograph was on the subway. For some reason, the game was postponed, 1953. I'm on the subway, and I had my Cardinal hat on, my Stan Musial button, and I'm 8 years old. And who comes over? Vinegar Ben Mizell, Dick Sisler, and I think a coach named Anderson. And for about 7 stops, they were talking to us on the subway.
How great is that?
And Vinegar Ben, the first game I ever went to, he won 9-4, doubleheader with the Giants.
I spent some time on the 7 line with Galen Cisco going out
Okay.
today.
Linebacker for Ohio State, too, right?
Yes. And a Met pitcher pretty decent in those first 2 years. I mean, when comparatively, he was compared to Bob Moorhead by me, this, that. But Cisco gave him some, I guess it was 64 or 5, gave him some decent innings on some putrid Met teams early on.
Yeah, they weren't really that good. Do you remember Jay Hook?
Very well. Very well.
Here's the Jay Hook story.
All right.
Me and my cousin, this is like 62. I guess I'm like 17. My cousin, we're walking, and there's a nice-looking woman by the gate in the Polo Grounds, and she goes, "Can you get there? You can only open it from our side. Can you open the gate? I'm Jay Hook's wife, and I want to get in." Okay. So we went over there, and we let Jay Hook's wife into the Polo Grounds. So about 8 years ago or something, we went to a BAT dinner. I went to the BAT dinners in the Marriott Marquis. My sons used to send me there, and Jay Hook was there with his wife. So I go, "Excuse me, Mrs. Hook, do you remember me?" She goes like, "No." I go, I explain what happened. She goes, "Oh my God, that was you." She goes.
She remembered the instance, huh?
I mean, how often do you get stuck behind the, you know.
Right. Yeah, that story is very close to, Ronnie Rabinovich of this state. He was really close friends with Jackie Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
A little kid and all that. And the same reaction. Rachel Robinson, he goes up to Rachel, "Remember me? I'm Ronnie." He goes, and she reacted the same way. "Do you remember? Yeah, do you remember me?" Or, "I remember that." It's pretty cool.
But I used to go to all basically Cardinal Giant games. Did you go to the Mets when they played in the Polo Grounds? 62 and 63?
60, and not only that, I went to Titan games. Football. Before the Jets were the Jets, they were the Titans, and they played in the Polo Grounds.
Yeah, one of our high school legends played one game for them, Jimmy Apple. He played one game.
For the Mets?
Not for the Titans. For Harry Wismer's team.
Okay.
Harry Wismer was the owner.
Yeah, Wismer was the owner. Al Doro was the quarterback. Joe Maynard was with him.
My mother's relative was friend was Hank Barrow. She grew up with. She also grew up with Frank Tripucka. Frank Tripucka. I think he set the AFL record.
Kelly's son, if I'm not
right. Kelly and so she grew up in Bluefield, New Jersey, and Tripucka and Barrow were the two main Bluefield stars.
Very cool.
But Frank Tripucka was going to be the quarterback coach for the Denver Broncos when it first opened, and turned out he was the best quarterback. So he played 4 years, but he played in the Canadian Football League.
Very interesting. They had him down there as the coach, and he was the best quarterback they had.
Yeah, well, he
those
was the All-American.
Great AFL years. Abner Hayes.
Yeah, he was my guy.
Abner with the Texas Texans. All right, I got to tell you something. It's middle of the winter, probably December or February, one of these months. The Titans are playing the Dallas Texans, and Marty Rose from this very station, my boyhood buddy and I, his dad was Murray Rose, the sports writer. And Murray, Mr. Rose, but he was Murray to everybody, would get us what we called guest seats. They would give the scribes a bunch of tickets to give out to friends, family, and what have you. And Murray always thought of his nephew, and his nephew is my buddy, so we had tickets to virtually everything.
Well, I even went to the two Gotham Bowls. Remember the Gotham Bowl?
I do.
Utah State with Merlin Olsen and Ronnie Bull with I still got the program, with the Chicago Bears. He was from Baylor. I mean, it's a New York venue, and they got Baylor from Texas and Utah State playing each other. Utah State was loaded that year, but Baylor upset them.
I think Ronnie Bull was from Glendale, California.
Good running back.
He was a good running back. He played behind Sayers, unless that's just what you said. So we're sitting there, and they had two defensive backs one named Dwayne Putnam did Texas, and the other guy I can't remember right offhand. I'm sure I have a program someplace that would identify him. But Mert and I are sitting there, and other guest seats were right on the 40 or the 50-yard line. Sits down. We're like 14, 15, 16. Sits down these two beautiful women who were either girlfriends or introduced us. They were either girlfriends or wives of Dwayne Putnam and the other defensive back for Texas. So we sat there watching the Texans against New York, and, you know, they're obviously rooting for their husbands and what have you, and we're kids, we're obviously rooting for the Titans. But we kidded around with them, and I wonder what happened to those guys and those couples and what have you. But so Jay Hook stayed with his wife all those years, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Hey, wasn't he the Brainiac too from Yale or something?
He was one. He went to Yale, I think.
And
one of them.
Casey Stengel
there was
some
Ken
kind of
McKenzie. There was Ken McKenzie was a Met.
He was in Dartmouth, I think.
Yeah, probably.
No?
Because I do remember that Hook was with Yale, and I remember he had an interview, and he said that he just got an alumni magazine, and he is making less than any of his fellow graduates. He graduated in engineering or such. And I don't mean driving the 7 to Shakes real engineering. And he joked around. He's making less than any of his fellow graduates.
That's like my son when he got out of Columbia.
Yeah, your son went to great school, by the way.
Yeah. Well, it was like
the ocean.
Well, like when he went to Wharton, he was working. You work 3 years, then you go to for your master's, and he went to Wharton, and he was making more than me. So he paid for most of that for Wharton.
Wow.
But they make obscene money from them.
Hey, in case you're out there listening, investing in education, in kids reading and kids, they're definitely our future, and that's the best investment you can make. Money notwithstanding, you can't spend that sort of security of being able to get through life. It's wonderful what you did with your kids.
I tell our football players, like, basically they have the lowest GPA out of our athletic team, but I'm sports. I know all the guys, and I'm always promoting academics. Like, look, you go to college, you go to be a phys ed teacher.
Right.
I mean, look at the phys ed. Don't they have it made? And most of them are coaches and stuff like that. It's the easiest. Well, outside of my job, it's like the best teaching job in the school.
You know, Gene, that it sounds great to us. Security, teaching, pensions, this, that, and the other thing. It's such an age of greed, and teachers are paid so very little, and kids are motivated by the dollar, whatever the dollar is going to bring. Stuff. They're not motivated by anything else. Liberal arts suffers, as we know. So, I don't understand why teachers
are a cop, though, right? How many of your guys became cops you went to school with?
Not that many.
Not really?
Just not, but
we have some real lunkheads, and they became cops. Like, you know, real wise guys and everything, and they became cops.
Right.
But now to be a cop,
you have to have from
degrees.
The bad guy.
Yeah, but now to be a cop, you got to have degrees now.
Yeah, but
like
not degree. Yeah. I bless the soul of someone who has the gumption to put it together to get an AA degree, a 2-year degree. it wasn't me. I went to junior college and played tennis. So I have no formal education along those lines. Bless their soul. But
well, I took the post office exam my senior year.
$65,000 with the responsibility of carrying around a loaded gun and the immaturity of not knowing what to respond to. Only not because they're stupid, because they're inexperienced. And another of the big problems institutionally with the police department is they're trained by the old school sergeants that A, want that blue code taken care of, and B, you're a coward if you respond to the help that's offered in every precinct to get psychological counseling, which you gotta need doing the job you're doing.
Yeah, well, my town is halfway decent. The problem with my town is we're the midpoint between Philly and New York. So sometimes when there's drug deals going on, they meet in our town. It's just one, so that's really the main thing. But there's about five cops in my town that were my students.
Oh, really?
Football players.
Oh.
It helps me if I ever get stopped.
Yeah, you don't want to have to, though.
No, but I'm saying it's like,
Yeah.
And I work security with them. We do the games. We always have a cop there. It's different ones. And, I go, yeah, I remember you made that touchdown. I remember you did this. I remember you did that. You know what I mean? They all appreciate, that I remember, and they know I was at every game.
Right.
But I took the post office exam my senior year in high school. I stayed there for 2 years.
My grandfather, and I have his brass plaque, his brass badge. It says U.S. Post Office, Mount Kisco, number 1. He was the first postman in Mount Kisco, New York, in the 30s.
Wow.
And that was what he passed on to me. Plus being a Giant fan, New York Giant fan, passed that on to me.
The post office had a lot of athletes. I even think Shotgun Schubert became a postmaster.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
I think that was in Boys of Summer, Roger Kahn.
You talked about Shuba in that respect. Well, I'll throw out one thing about your boy Ken Boyer. And all the Boyers were from Alma, Missouri. And this is all a big segue. My buddy in the Air Force, Dave McKinley, he and his wife Susan really helped me out when I was going through some bad stuff. Just being in the Air Force is bad stuff. But they were a married couple, and they were a little older than me, and I was a GI away from home, and all that stuff. So I remember them. They were terrific. Well, Dave McKinley was the kind of guy who knew a little bit about everything. And I'm a New Yorker. I knew nothing about everything. So I thought I knew everything about it, but I knew nothing. So he's a Missouri guy, went to Springfield, graduated with a guy named Johnny Rowland. And
running back,
and a good one.
I remember him.
At Missouri. And his mom raised him in Alma, Missouri. She was the postmaster in Alma, Missouri, where the Boyers grew up. And,
well, 9 of them, or whatever.
Yeah, all nine kids. How many played pro? I know there was Cloyd.
Cloyd was the first one. I made contact with him as soon as my book got published, and I was able to get him on the phone. And he goes, "What is this about?" And I explained, "Well, wait." I go, "Let me explain." I go, your brother Ken was like a brother to me, like he needed another brother." I go, and we talked for about a half hour. So I sent him a copy of the book. Says the book has a sub agenda about Ken Boyer in the Hall of Fame. So we talked about a half hour or so.
Wow.
And I have his 53 card as a Cardinal. He had a real nice Cardinal card in 1953, and then I think he had the Atlanta, I forgot, Kansas City or something in the 55 Bowman set.
Yeah.
Boy.
Hey, the best call in World Series history. We're talking about Cleat at third now, not Ken, but it's a Red Barber call. And one of you guys brought it to my attention. I hadn't thought about it in years, but ground ball, Mr. Boyer, and that's all he had to say, Mr. Boyer. Just ate it. It was a great call, Red Barber. Cleat Boyer was a great fielder.
Absolutely.
I didn't watch Robinson much. Obviously, he's in.
But Brooks was rubber stamped for the Gold Glove every year. Not that he wasn't great, but he was rubber stamped for the Gold Glove every year. As soon as Cleat moved over, he won one with Atlanta.
Right. Never won a Gold Glove with the Yankees, and I thought he was terrific. The debate goes on, I guess, who is a better fielder, Cleat Boyer or Nettles. What say you about that?
Well, me and Nettles had a verbal situation where he wanted to punch my lights out at a BAT dinner.
What could you have possibly said to evoke that? You're truthfully a peaceful guy.
No, wait. So I go to a BAT dinner. The year before, I contacted him, don't send me with a Yankee, and I sent him a Facebook of my book. And he goes, okay, we won't. So anyway, the next year I didn't do that. So I go there, and they see, I'm sitting at table 1. So I go over there, and a player has to be at each table. So I go to table 1, and I go over there. I'm by myself. I get there early so I can see as many players as I can. And I have a few books with me. So Michael Kay comes over. You know Michael Kay?
Yes, the announcer.
Yeah, so he comes over, and he goes, excuse me, is the seat taken? I go, I don't know if you want to sit here. I showed him a copy of the book, and he sat down, and we talked. We had a real good time. Nettles was the one at our table. Now, I have a flyer I was giving out to non-Yankee guys of who I was, band in the Bronx, the whole thing. And everybody who'd never played for the Yankees loved it. So I showed the table. I was at the Yes table, the Yankee Entertainment Station table. And they sat me there. And the producers or whoever else was there from the Yes, they were all pretty good. And so me and Nettles started talking. And I go, I say, I don't say anything bad about you. I said, in fact, I loved you in 1994 when you were with the Padres. And I didn't say anything bad about him in the book or anything. And he goes, why don't you go give this out on Broadway? I go, why would I do that? This is a baseball theme, and a lot of people like it. And he was getting all upset and everything. It's like, let me go get a drink. And the other guy said, just let him go. Michael Kay was called he could be a jerk.
Yeah, well, he's one that punched Reggie Jackson in the mouth, if I recall.
Yeah, him and Gossage were. In fact, I met him a few years before when I was still writing the book, and we had a conversation. But he definitely didn't appreciate the book and everything, and he really got mad, and we walked away. And I tried to. Michael Kay has a show called Center Stage, and I tried to promote myself to get on the show. I go, my son can even come because he's a Yankee lover and he's a co-author. He goes, that would be a great idea, but the producers would never go for it. I go, I understand that, but it would really be a fun show. Me, the Yankee hater, and my Yankee lover.
Absolutely. And you know what? We've been doing this about a year and a half with you. And I have never, not one time, have you not been totally objective when talking about the Yankees? And that's very difficult to be. You're a Yankee hater, but it's a shtick in a way, of course. And you're a Yankee worshiper. If we both had the chance to sit down with Mickey Mantle tomorrow, okay, that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Dr. Bobby Brown, the Yankee. What would we love it? It would be unbelievable. We wouldn't talk down about them. You don't talk down about hating them. You don't hate them because they're lousy. You hate them.
I would even have Yidri, Mattingly, and Munson in the Hall of Fame. I can make an argument for the three of them.
Yeah.
I'm for a big Hall of Fame. I'm not like, I'm for guys who dominate, and I'm not like for some of these people only want Willie Mays and Stan Musial in it. I'm for a big Hall of Fame, but I could see them three being in it, in my opinion.
Yeah, but you couldn't not put Veda Pinson in. You couldn't put Minnie Minoso in for any of those guys.
I have about 50 guys that I would have in there.
If you think of it that way, why not honor the best of the best, but not the bestest, so to speak?
I would have Cott, Tommy John, Billy Pierce, maybe Wills. Wills is kind of borderline. Tiant. Like I said, I probably like close to 50. Starting, of course, the ones I didn't see, just going on stats. Duffy McGinnis with the Philadelphia A's first baseman of the year. 2,400 hits, 300 batting average. Going back to him, Bobby Veach, the Detroit Tigers, and I go all the way up. I come up probably close to 50 that I'd probably have in the Hall of Fame.
Who would you take out?
I wouldn't take anybody out. But mostly, you don't want to have Rizzuto in there. I don't care. But the thing about Rizzuto, which I always comment when they stop blasting him, Ted Williams said that the Yankees won because of Phil Rizzuto. I don't understand that because he had Vern Stevens at shortstop who was getting 140 runs about it in. And then Ty Cobb said Phil Rizzuto is the one player who could play in his time. So he has the endorsement from two of the greatest hitters of all time.
Well, and Casey said he was an absolute acrobat at shortstop.
It's not, but he only has 1,500 hits, and even if you take in the 3 years for World War II and you give him, say, 500, he's only going to get like 2,000 hits. And you're a Giant fan. I think Al Dark should be in if he's in.
I think Al Dark, if Reese and Rizzuto are in, Al Dark should be in.
He blows them away with the bat.
Does that mean Al Dark should be in? Does that mean Reese and Rizzuto should be in? I think should Roy McMillan be in? Should Ted Kluszewski be in?
Nah, I wouldn't. Kluszewski at 31 years old, he looked like Jimmy Fox. He was 31. He had 35 homers, batted 300, 100 RBIs for his getting 40 homers a year, and then the 31 injuries did him in, and he was finished. But he looked like Jimmy Fox. He was only 31 years old.
Yeah, as you said on Facebook the other day, at that time, in mid-30s, 33, 34, 35, guys would fade out. Good example was
dropped from 37 years old. He had 3,000 hits. His batting average was 340. He played 5 more years, and he did come in third one year with 330, but his average fell to 331. Not that not that bad, but he lost 10 points, and Mantle lost 13 points, I think, in his last 4 or 5 years. And he was so mad.
Not even hitting 300.
That's the one thing. Okay, you know I'm against the juicers, and I comment a lot when they say Barry Bonds that even with the juice, he wasn't a 300 hitter.
Wait a minute. Could that be because the relief pitching facing him were on juice too?
No,
your whole thing with the juice is absolutely not fair, because if you can find a way, and it kills me to have to not be able to compare who is the best left fielder of all time. Was it Cobb? Was it Bonds? Was it Williams? That was a great argument when I was a kid, that sort of stuff. Can't do that anymore. We've all learned that all we can compare is generation to generation.
Yeah, but you can't compare people who have illegal enhancements, whereas Fred McGriff, if there's no smoke on you, you're considered clean.
No, if the entire era is tainted, then
yeah, but
you can't
other players
consider
aren't,
anybody clean. You
If
can just consider everybody playing against each other, whether they were clean or not. The players have a way of balancing it all out. For every hitter, there was a Clemens. For every Bonds,
it was mostly the batters probably that were taking it, and do you think it's fair for McGriff to compare him? If you take away the steroid people, McGriff might have been one of the best power hitters of his era.
He was one of the best power hitters.
Yeah, but you compared him with Sosa and Palmeiro and the juice guys.
Okay. But not to put these guys in the Hall of Fame. Eventually,
you're honoring these guys for doing something. To me, is it morally right or is it immoral to have honored these guys with a plaque when they did this, when it was illegal?
Well, it was morally right to honor Duke Snider for evading taxes and spending time in the.
That got nothing to do with playing. I'm just talking about what they do on the field.
Okay.
Even Kirby Puck could be beating up his wife or whatever he did. I'm talking about what they do on the field.
Okay.
I'm not talking about their character. I mean, the whole 1920s was most of the players were from Dixie and they were all racist.
Okay.
So that doesn't come into the picture because it's on integrity, sportsmanship, character on the playing field is the basis of Rule 5 for the voting requirements. Now, the reason Bonds and Clemens get more than 50% is that even my son, he would vote for them because they had the Hall of Fame stats before they juiced. That's why they get 50.
One reason, no question about that. Just like I got a memo from a buddy of mine, Ron Harvin, today. He opens up the Pete Rose case. Should Pete Rose be in? Well, if you look at his numbers as a ball player, definitely.
Joe Jackson,
no question. But how do you discount betting baseball? And don't tell me he didn't bet on his own team or that sort of thing. He didn't bet against himself because whether or not you know it, Gene, when he'd bet the over and under.
Yeah, I understand. Like point shaving. Okay, we could win by 15. We're only going to win by 8. Like Ralph Baird and Groza and back with Kentucky and the guys from Bradley and the CCN GoI guys.
Right, no question. LIU and all the.
Do you know I went to the games in the 1960s when Seton Hall was doing it? Seton Hall beat the NCAA winner and they beat the NIT winner. They lost to Dayton by 7. I used to follow Seton Hall really close. I live right there.
Right.
They lost to 7 at Dayton, which is unbelievable. You can't win at Dayton. And they played Dayton in the
Chmielewski was the center, and they had the Grady Hatton brothers.
Right.
I don't remember.
And the pitcher for the Twins. The pitcher of the Twins, Gary Rogenberg.
Right. They were very tough.
And Seton Hall, they had Artie Hicks, who transferred from Northwestern, and Hank Gunter. Now, I used to go to the Seton Hall games before they built the arena at Walshwood in their campus. And, I'd be there, and during the freshman game, these two guys would walk in, all decked out like Artie Hicks. And Hicks was he outplayed the Busher. When Detroit U came in, he outplayed the Busher. And then Nick Workman came along, and Nick Workman kind of saved Seton Hall from de-emphasizing. But Hicks and Gunter, they were so great. I mean, they beat Cincinnati when they had Paul Hogue, Tom Thacker, Dick Jackson, and they beat Cincinnati, and then they beat Dayton.
Wow!
But no, they beat Providence. Providence was the NIT winner that year.
Providence had one of the Egan brothers, one of the Egans, Jack Egan.
And John Thompson.
Jack Egan.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And he had a busted up leg, or he would have been MBA.
Right.
He was really good. He played with Wilkins.
One Egan went to the NBA. As a matter of fact, he was a Knick for a while.
Okay.
But there was another Egan that became. He was from Boston. I think he became a mayor of Boston, if I'm not mistaken.
Wasn't that like Flynn? Flynn, he was a guard for Providence. He became the mayor.
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking of him. Maybe I'm thinking of him.
Now I met Tommy Davis at one of the BAT dinners, and once they find out who I am and I'm the Yankee hater, they didn't play. They love me. So me and Tommy Davis had a long talk. Do you know what we talked about? The number one.
You talked about Boyce High and Lenny Wilkins.
Lenny Wilkins, that's what we talked about. He goes, "Oh my God, really?" You know, he loved it that I yeah, he would have been like, he goes, baseball was my thing, and he was so mad. Wow. He was so mad that he didn't win the 1962 MVP. Maury Wills with the 104. I think Willie Mays led the league in homers, and I think he came in third. But he batted like 350 with 150 RBIs. Of course, it was easier because Wills was always stealing. But he was really miffed about that.
It was also easy because he didn't yet have his ankle destroyed.
Oh, yeah, he was still healthy.
He was still healthy. He was so good before. Remember that old jingle they had about who's the Giants have Willie, but the Davises. The comparisons in Davises, the differences in Davises can be seen in many ways. Tommy is not Willie, and Willie is not Mays. How about that one?
Well, the one thing that hurt Willie Davis was the 3 hours in a one inning. When I was in Vietnam listening to that game, 2 o'clock in the morning in Vietnam time.
I remember those three. That really... Curt Flood made an error in the World Series.
Well, it was
more than one.
A misplay. It was a misplay, and what happened was when he went back, when he misjudged it, when he went back, the ground gave way. If the ground didn't give way, he might have caught it. But he did. I think he stepped forward before. Now, as a player and a coach, the balls right at you are really tough.
Right.
And he was a great center fielder. Now, the second best center fielder prior to Flood playing for center field for the Cardinals was Ken Boyer when he played in center field for 1 year.
There was also Bill Verdon played for them for a year or two.
Yeah. Now a lot of people don't remember, but he made 2 game-saving catches in that 1960 World Series.
Bill Verdon did.
And that ball's going to go over into the stands.
Right.
I met him at one of the bat dinners too. What a great guy Bill was. So I go, Bill, what were you thinking when you hit the grounder to Kubek? He goes, I don't want to say them words. Then all of a sudden they hit Kubek in the throat. I go, what were you thinking? It was a short double play. He goes, I don't want to say them words. I said. And
let me give you some trivia. They brought in, when Kubek goes down, they bring in Joe DeMaestri to play shortstop. It had been Casey's habit because Kubek was DeMaestri was a better fielder than Kubek.
Yeah, he was one of them 210 guys you were talking about.
Right, exactly. He spent 10 years in the bigs with Kansas City.
Great glove. Great glove.
A great glove and a great interview and a great guy, rest his soul. He really liked him as a human being. He was a good guy, and sorry he's no longer with us. But my point is that in 1960, all year long, when the Yankees had a lead at the end of the year, at the end of the game, last couple of innings, he'd bring in DeMaestri, put Kubek in left, and take out Yogi Berra, who was playing left field.
Right.
More or less every day for the Yankees out there.
Right.
Howard had taken over as the catcher, and they're going back and forth, all that stuff. He doesn't do it in this game, and sure enough, there's a ground ball, hits Kubek in the throat. Now, would have DeMaestri responded? Would have he been in the same spot? We'll never know that. But I think it was one of those games that the brass looked at Casey and said, "Hey, you're not reacting like you used to. You're not making these moves. But I'll never forget Casey's line when they fired him. He was 70 years old. I laugh at that. I'm 71 at this moment. And he says, well, they fired me because I'm 70. I'll never make the mistake of being 70 again.
And then they got rid of Weiss, too.
They got rid of Weiss, and they both teamed up to
outdraw, not outwin.
Is this a good idea?
But
how they built the Mets? Pardon me?
They didn't outwin them, but they outdrew them with fans.
They outdrew them with fans, and let me tell you something. Weiss and Casey, in his development of Swoboda and Tug McGraw, a few others came up. Early guys came up. Cleon Jones came up when Casey was still there, if I'm not mistaken. But in any event, Weiss, at least, was instrumental in building that terrific 1969 amazing Mets miracle team.
Well, that was a crazy year. So sometimes I think you just can't beat fate.
Right. And all sports in 69.
Like even the 1960 World Series. I feel bad for Hal Smith, who would have been the hero had not Bob Friend come in and continue to be the friend for the Yankees.
Terrific. And I'll tell you something else. Hal Smith, there were two Hal Smiths. One of them...
Yeah, the Cardinal one, he won the game for me in 1960 at the... when I went down to Philly for a doubleheader because I missed the Cardinals. My mother, we went from North to Philly to see the game, and Hal Smith won the game in the ninth inning with a 3-run homer.
Right. So...
But the other Hal Smith was very gracious about it because they had the interview, they were replaying the whole thing, and he was very gracious. Like, he goes, I don't care. It put us ahead as long as we won it. I don't care. Like some guys will feel like, it was a chance for me to be a big guy. We win 9-7, and then what a wild ninth inning. Oh my God! And if Dick Stewart was in there, we talked about Dr. Strangelove. They had Rocky Nelson playing first.
If playing first, and
Yogi hit the ball down the line. And he snagged it, and he stepped on first, and Mantle slid around him to go back to first. But if that was Dick Stewart, that ball would have probably went down the right field line into the wall.
Right. They had Rocky Nelson, too, was the first.
He hit a homer in that game, too. He's the first inning. He hit a home run, Rocky Nelson.
Right. Left-handed hitter with platoon with Stewart. And that Bob Skinner, that was a very interesting team. Like I said, Verdon in center, Clemente and right.
Clemente should have probably been the MVP, and he only came in like 6th or 7th because Don Hoke came in second.
Right. And all those Yankees, they poo-poo that, well, we scored so many more runs, we should have won. I think they're forgetting something. It's each individual game, how many runs you score at the end, how many wins. That's what determines it. And
they voted for the MVP before the end of the game. If they had deadlines to meet, is why Richardson got the MVP. I know he set a record for RBIs, but they had it. I guess I don't know what the score was when they voted on it, but it's probably the Yankees are probably still winning. Now
it was before Mazeroski hitting that home run.
It was probably before the 5-run inning. Now you know what the Babe Ruth Award is? That was started in 1949.
No.
Okay, the Babe Ruth Award was started in 1949 for the outstanding player of the World Series, and 1955 is when the Major League Baseball did it with Johnny Padres. That was the first one. Before that, the Babe Ruth Award was the forerunner, and it's still in effect. And in 2007, they changed it. Springer was the MVP this year for the World Series, but the Babe Ruth Award is now for the most outstanding player for the total playoffs. So Verlander and Altuve shared it. Now you talk about collecting. I have every World Series MVP card in the year that they got it, and I have every Babe Ruth card. Like Pete Rose was the MVP in '75 when the Reds beat the Red Sox, but Louis Tiant won the Babe Ruth Award as the most outstanding player. The only one from the losing team with the Babe Ruth, because the Babe Ruth Award went to Mazeroski in 1960 because they do it long after the season, like a couple of weeks after the season.
All right, let me get your expertise on this, and maybe the audience can benefit from this. How do you do your buying now? How do you assure that you're not having counterfeits and what have you? And what do you think of today's memorabilia will be the cat's meow in when your grandkids are growing up?
Well, no, I don't know about the future for that, but right now, what I collect is, right now I'm getting, Topps now has a card. They make it as the event happens, and they print it for one day. It's called Topps Now. Football does it, and the Panini company owns the football making cards, and they call it Panini Instant. Like, for example, the Tom Brady, when they upset Atlanta, like when the Atlanta blew the 28-3 lead, I collected all the Now cards for Tom Brady's season.
Wow.
Did
they have the card of him actually deflating the ball?
No.
They don't have that, right?
No. But the Topps Now cards are big right now, and they make the event. And right now, they show you I'm the Yankee hater, but right now I'm collecting every card that comes out for Gleyber Torres because he's a rookie, 21 years old, and he has a good chance for, like, potentially, I know it's like really young, but like for 3,000 hits.
Wow.
But since he's a rookie and rookie cards are the valuable cards, I'm getting his Topps Now cards.
Nice.
Now what I do is
I'll tell you, there's always a connect in baseball. He's on Los Buckaroos, my fantasy baseball team, and glad to have him.
Now what I collect every year I collect who's ever going to make the Hall of Fame. Okay, so Roy Campanella retired in 1957. Beginning in 1957, I have every Hall of Famer's last Topps card, except for Ted Williams, because in 1958 he sold out to Flair. So a Flair 1960 is his last card. But I have every player in the Hall of Fame who retired from 1957, starting with Roy Campanella's Topps card. I go all the way up with their Topps card to now.
Did Williams had a 58 Topps card, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he had two of them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the All-Star card and his regular card.
Yeah, but 60 was his last year, so I have his Flair card. He was in the Flair old-timer set. So I got the last year that they played. Now, you have Mickey Mantle's. Like, for example, you have some idiosyncrasies with it. You have Mickey Mantle's last season was 1968. Same thing with Clemente. His last year was 1968, yet Topps made a card of him in 69 because he didn't decide to retire yet. Same thing so I have a 69 card. Same thing with Clemente. Clemente's last year was 72 because that's when he got killed, but his Topps card for 73 was already made. So I have his 73 card because that was the last card made of him while he was still supposedly active. So I have every card as last card of every Hall of Famer. Now what I also have, 1981 was when Topps lost the monopoly with Flair and Don.
Right.
So I have every Hall of Famers from 1981 up, rookie cards, and some of them are multi. Like I have Derek Jeter. I have like 45 rookie cards of Derek Jeter, and some of them are pre-rookie because they made cards of him when he was in Kalamazoo, Michigan, high school there. So
and there were different companies involved in making minor league cards.
Yeah.
At that time, I don't think Topps made a card of him when he was at Kalamazoo, unless it was his.
No. But I have every company card. Like I have all his. He started in '95, so I have his cards like from '91, '92, whatever years. So he has like 3 or 4, like Gleyber Torres. I don't have any of his. He has a whole bunch of rookie cards that were when he was in the minors. But right now I'm just getting his Now cards because I don't know what it's going to do. I also collect every World Series MVP or Babe Ruth card. Right now, I got the Now cards. Like I got the Now cards of Verlander, Altuve, and they only started 2 years. So Ben Zobrist, I got them like 2 years ago. And then I collect cool. every Super Bowl MVP since. In fact, you're going to love this one. I have all the AFL MVPs too. Billy Cannon. I got 2 Billy Cannon cards when he was MVP. Jack Spikes. Jack Kemp.
Yes.
So I have every Super Bowl and AFL championship the year that they won it. Like I got Bart Starrs. He was the first, so I have the card of the year he won it. Like this year I got Nick Foles. So that's how I collect. My room is so loaded, and I have sets. I tell you, I had the 1913 Hall of Fame National Game Tom Barker cards. Then I go to 1933, and that's the long set, 32-card set with Lou Gehrig and Jimmy Fox and a whole bunch of Hall of Famers. Then the 1934 to 1936 Diamond Star Gum Company, they put down cards, and they have the same picture, so it doesn't matter what card it is, 34, 35, 36. They might airbrush the hat or something. But the cards are all the same. The numbers are the same. So the 1934 to 36 Diamond Star set is 108 cards, and I have that set. 33 of them are Hall of Famers. Most of them, a lot of them are Frankie Frisch's guys. But I don't have any.
Topps used a lot of the same pictures.
You're right. That's another reason why I didn't care for them. But they would, like, they had the background of a guy fielding or hitting. They would change that.
Right.
They have one. I think they have the Hank Aaron card when it's actually Willie Mays sliding home.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll look for that in my Topps Baseball Cards book. I have a book that Topps put out in the mid-'80s. Every baseball card.
I know. I thought of that. Very good.
Very good.
Well, Gary Carter had a whole bunch of Topps cards. I think from 1952 all the way up. Gary Carter was a good collector.
Rest his soul too.
Like I say, for the Babe Ruth award, I have like Joe Page was the first Babe Ruth winner. Then Jerry Coleman, Phil Rizzuto, Billy Martin. So I have the card of the year. And then in '55 they began the Major League. Like Tony Padres won both. Larson. Now, 1956, I think, to me, it was a joke. I know Larson pitched the perfect game, but Yogi Berra hit 2 homers in the final. He hit 3 homers, and he had 10 RBIs, and he hit 360. I understand he threw the perfect game, but to me, Yogi should have been the MVP.
Okay.
I'm sure Yogi, with all his accolades, Larson don't have penny, but so I'm sure Yogi don't care. But I'm just saying.
Well, I'll tell you what. If I didn't know you wrote the book, the anti-Yankee book, I would think this guy is a Yankee fan from.
I just know all about him. That's all.
Yeah, and you respect him.
Yeah, I consider them the bullies. They always have the most money. Now the kids in school, they'll go to me. They'll go like, hey, and everybody knows I wrote the book. They go, hey, 27 championships. I go, hey. I go, and my favorite words to the students are, shut up and listen. I go, shut up and listen. You're gonna learn something. I go, in my lifetime, the Yankees have won 11 World Series from 1954. My teams have won all the rest. So what do I have to be sad about?
Your teams are every team that goes that plays against the New York Yankees.
So they go. You can't like that's. I go, would it be not fair? I can do what I want. What do you mean I can't do that? I bust their bubble. I'm like 50 something and 54 and 11. You know what I mean?
It's like talking to you is like when I was a kid talking ball.
And I have all the World Series press pins from 1948 up. For the press, like I'm sure your friend Murray probably has some from the Yankees. If you did to get in to give you the press pin.
Absolutely.
And
hey, Murray's long gone. We're all almost long gone. We're talking about things like Seton Hall. That's 60 years ago. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I saw
Unbelievable.
You heard of Nick Workman?
Of course.
I must have saw him play like 30 times.
At Seton Hall. Yes.
Yeah, I used to go. And then, like I say, the Holiday Festival, I went like for 35 years in a row. I went to the NIT for 25 years in a row.
I didn't go all those many years because I left New York to go in the Air Force. But those early years when you went to holiday festivals, NITs, and I was there too. Me and Murphy.
Well, when Tim Iluski, there was such a change in him from the Holiday Festival to the NIT. How much greater he got. He dominated Leroy Ellis like crazy.
Of St. John's, Leroy Ellis.
Well, I don't want to tell you what happened to Tim Iluski, why he didn't play anymore. I was in the Army with a couple of the guys who played with him. What happened to his career?
All right. You don't want to tell me, or you're just teasing me?
Well, actually, he had he was such a lunkhead. He had a bunch of girls pregnant and stuff like that at Dayton.
Oh, okay. Well, so he never played pro, if I'm not mistaken.
No, he went to Dayton. I don't know if he played his junior year.
Right.
He was tremendous, 6'11". I mean, strong, monster. A lot of.
For those out there that don't know about Madison Square Garden and how they bring in teams for the Holiday Festival and the NITs, let me give you one NIT and/or Holiday Festival. I don't remember which this was. Here are the teams: Ohio State with Jerry Lucas, Newell, and Havlicek.
Roberts.
One more guy who was the coach of the San Francisco Warriors when they won in '75. I can't think of his name. He played on that team. Then they had Oscar would come in with Bonham and those guys.
Oscar didn't play with Bonham.
Or Thacker. Was it Thatcher?
Yeah.
Played with?
Thacker, who had a resemblance, facial resemblance to Oscar.
Ah, okay. Well, those were some good teams. Hoke played on one of them. Hoke probably played after Oscar was gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think Oscar was in 3 Final Fours, and then they won it 2 years after he was gone.
Okay.
I remember
the New York teams that were just tremendous in those days.
Yeah, NYU would hear from
NYU, St. John. Who comes in but Indiana with Walt Bellamy and the Van Arsdale twins.
Yeah. So, they were so alike. GPA, NBA points, and even their GPAs, they were like 1 and 2 in like high school.
Really?
I remember I don't know if you got it, but the Scholastic magazine you used to get in high school, or even.
Oh yeah, I couldn't even read Scholastic. I couldn't even pronounce the word, let alone.
But they used to have the sports thing, and I think like in 8th grade or something. I remember reading about the Van Arsdales.
Yeah.
They were like both 1 and 2, 1 and 3, and Bellamy was something else.
Bellamy.
But that's how they got the Busher, right? Him and Comer.
They did, and I thought they really had improved themselves when they got Bellamy, and it was just a step because they had Bad News Barnes and what have you, and they trade for DeBuscher, and they got rid of Comives to do it. I couldn't stand Comives.
Yeah, but you realize how people talk about now. You ever hear Cyril Baptiste? He was like 600.
I did, and I'll try to put
he was
my
from
name.
Creighton. He was
not
like
New Mexico. Not New Mexico.
No. But he was at Creighton. He was an All-American first team at Creighton. When he graduated Creighton, he had a 2nd grade reading level.
Oh.
so I mean, that's like, things haven't changed in people's desire to win.
Right, and who they're going to bring onto the court and who they're going to cover up academically.
In my high school, our wrestling coach's dad, one of our assistant wrestlers' dad, he was at Alabama, and he was like a swimmer or something. He goes, to make ends meet a little bit, he became a tutor. He was pretty smart, a tutor for the athletes. So this 6'11", 6'10" guy comes in and gives him, here's my homework. And he goes, what are you giving it to me for? I'm going to help you with it. He goes, no, I'm not doing. I don't do homework. He goes, what do you mean you don't do homework? I help you with it. And he left. So Wimp Sanderson was the coach. So this guy I know, he told Wimp Sanderson, and he ended up getting kicked out of Alabama.
All kinds of stories in the world we live in.
Yeah,
hey, listen, what a great show. Thank you. Pardon me?
Things haven't changed. Everybody thinks like things are different now. Like even with all the drugs going on. I remember kids like 1962. Oh, my brother-in-law was a cop because so-and-so overdosed. The mayor's niece overdosed. Everybody thinks like, the kids are like, kids are bad
They
now.
didn't just discover it yesterday. But what's really strange? They're still fighting the drug war all these years later. How's that working out for them?
Well, I hate to see all this money being wasted on fighting marijuana.
Especially not just marijuana. I mean, I'm talking about the big drugs. Prescribe that stuff. Get people a chance to get it and not be crooks, and to wean themselves off of it and be under a doctor's care, because it ends up costing much less money than what they're doing, and what they're doing is just lining the pockets of these government agents and gangs and what have you.
Yeah. Well, give an example. I'm Mr. Cool with all the kids. All the kids know me. They didn't know not to mess with me. The reason why the guys listen to me, kid got in trouble the other day with me, a couple before school, and I go, what are you doing that for? And he goes, I go, shut up. Here's the answer. You, me, your dad, if you have a son, we are all mental midgets, nothing to do with GPA. We do stupid stuff, don't we? And then he got the picture, started laughing. I go, so knock it off, okay? He goes, yeah, I got you.
What was he doing?
Some kind of stupid rule thing that he wasn't supposed to be.
Oh, okay.
So that's the way I get him to stop. When I equate myself, I tell him, look, I did a lot of stupid stuff in my life. I go, not counting Vietnam, I should be dead 10 times in my life. You know what I mean? So they get it like, right away they feel better. Because I
humanizes yourself, and we are all human, and if you're not trying to be holier than thou, they will respect that a lot more than.
So one of the bad kids that I'm buddies with, I try and keep him straight as much as I can. I go, he was Gene, and they all call me Gene. I'm not a Mister. They all call me Gene. So they go, Gene, what kind of weed do you do? I go, there's two kinds. I go, if you ask me what kind of beer I drink, I could tell you, but I go, there's two kinds. But he was serious, like, I go, first of all, I told him, I tried smoking in the 6th grade. Like, back in our day, I don't know what grade you guys started, but back in my day, the boys started in 6th grade. Mickey Mantle, all the guys, all the athletes are smoking, all the movie stars. I love watching Turner Classic movies. Bogart's my favorite. And everybody's always smoking. I go, no, I don't like smoking. I tried it for 6 months. I got dizzy. So, I never did weed except at a few parties I got secondhand. So, but they feel comfortable with me, and I try and tell them, you guys don't have nothing that we didn't do in my day.
Absolutely, except.
But I try and put them on the right path.
That's the most you can do.
And they all know I carry my Vietnam picture with me and the baseball card acrylic, so they can show what I used to be. Right. Where I'm kind of buffed. They go, oh my God. I go, let me tell you something. I am a little bit older, so now it'll take me 30 seconds longer to kill you. And after that,
you have the stamina still that you can get it done to kill them.
I still got the guns. The guns are still there.
All right. Well.
So every once in a while, like even football players, they check.
Just keep them away from toddlers. Let's put it that way, without getting into. And by the way, you're a good standing member. You must be of the militia, or you wouldn't have those guns.
but it's like. I get the 8th grade football team. I'm always pushing. The football team doesn't have the best grades, and it's a good thing this football would have a lot of bad guys running around town. But the thing is, it's like It's like crazy. And I tell them, you could read the playbook. The playbook isn't that easy, is it? The football playbook. I understand that a guy, when we want to do something, will put forth the effort. So you could learn to read the playbook, which shows that you have the mentality to do geometry.
Oh, you can read a baseball card and figure the earned run average, and you can do algebra. Basically.
Yeah, well, that's what helped me in school. I was like in 5th grade or something when I found out that Sam usually went 2 for 4. That was 500. I go, I had that whatever grade it was. So I was the first to do the batting averages. That's
well, I found that out in the 4th grade, the second time I was in the 4th grade, because my father was in the 5th grade and I didn't want to embarrass him.
Yeah, but
all right,
my
friend.
Percentages.
Well, baseball cards taught me percentages. And,
yeah, absolutely. It's also geography.
And just a sense of happy folks, boys playing a man's game.
Yeah.
Or men playing a little boy's game. That's it. That's what Campy used to say. And there's some joy to it, whether you're playing it or you're following it or you're thinking about it. Puts a smile on our face and gives us some joy. So thank you for bringing that to me tonight, my friend Gene. I'm glad you're off the DL.
Yep. I'm progressing.
All right. Gene Hutmaker, tell us about your little book again.
Banned in the Bronx, The Yankee Hater Memoirs, 1963
where can people get it? More importantly, where can they get an autographed copy by you?
You can check me out on Facebook. You can always contact me on Facebook, or you can also get a regular one at Amazon.com with 5-star reviews.
Beautiful. Thank you again, Gene Hutmaker. The show is on Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. It's just Comfortably Zoned, the podcast today. And as usual, I get to talk to the most interesting people in the world, and I love it. So thank you again, Gene. If you're listening out there, please be well. We'll be back before you know it, and that's a promise, not a threat. Adios, everybody.